They saw this guy walking around, but they only saw from the torso up because the stage used to go all the way back. So where the stage is now, it wasn't a stage. That's where people would have been seated or walking. And so they saw that without us even telling them about other guy.
There have been many instances over the years of inexplicable things happening, and I'm the biggest cynic of anybody you might ever meet about such things, but I have to admit that I can't explain certain things. And other folks have shared experiences with me when they've been at the house, and all I can do is just weave it into the fabric of what it is to live at Birdie House.
And my grandfather and dad used to tell us about the meeting tree. And I remember, getting the nerve up on our bikes to see if we could go over there, and hear it. But we were we were never able to hear it. We weren't always late enough to hear it, but he used to scare us to death to try to go over there and see if we could hear it.
I am going to be telling the story of the meeting tree, which my dad told me when I think I was about 5.
Their room was upstairs, and so in his dream, he went to chat with her to see who she was, what she was doing in his house, etc., etc. And she started becoming a little bit belligerent.
It's said that this time of year is the time of year where the veil between what you can see and what you can't see is thin. And the festival of Halloween is the thing that marks off warding off evil spirits by trying to scare them away. I don't really understand how that works, because aren't they evil? But whatever. Every town has a story, and or several stories, and ours is no different. So on our first episode, we're going to be visiting some of those stories of local lore and legend. Some are true and some aren't. Some are from people who've lived here a long time, and some are new, as well as music from people who've made Lockhart their home. I'm Stephen Collins, and this is 78644.
I'm Tammy Francis, and I am the current vice president of the board of directors at the Geislet Baker Theater, which I have been at for 12 years. And I also run the after-school program, the summer programs. I direct plays. I do set design. In fact, I won an award for set design for Godspell, and costume design also for Godspell. I am there a lot. Sometimes I'm there alone, and I've heard all the ghost stories. We were doing, this was probably 8 or 9 years ago. We were doing a vaudeville show, which is our big variety show that we do in the summer. And I was waiting backstage to go on, and there was some brooms and some other things kind of piled up, and nobody was near them. And the whole stick of the broom just moved completely sideways, like if somebody were pushing it. And that was really strange and really creepy. And I've never been able to explain it. It just happened. There were a couple other people back there, but they were facing the other direction, so they didn't see it. And it was something that was very tangible, as opposed to just when you're there alone, sometimes there's some very eerie feelings. There's very many different ghosts. I didn't feel like there was any evil thing going on there, because I know we have some friendly ghosts, so I don't think that was an evil ghost. Not that we have evil ghosts, but that there's some that seem a little darker than others. There's 3 that people tend to go on about. So there is one that has been called Other Guy for a long time. And that person hangs out kind of stage right back where our little tool room is. And it's a little bit more of an ominous presence. And what's interesting is not too long ago, a couple years ago, we had a couple mediums come in. And what's super fascinating is they saw this guy walking around, but they only saw from the torso up because the stage used to go all the way back. So where the stage is now, it wasn't a stage. That's where people would have been seated or walking. And so they saw that without us even telling them about Other Guy. And they felt that Other Guy wasn't evil, but that there was definitely Other Guy gets upset when you mess around with too much stuff. Then there's Laughing Lady. And Laughing Lady is usually in the whole lobby area. Nobody usually hears her anywhere else, but many, many people have heard her, and even recently. And there's always a smell of perfume if you're in that area. But specifically, my friends were there not too long ago, and they thought it was me coming into the theater because apparently her laugh sounded like mine. And they heard a laugh. My friend was up in the sound booth, came down to talk to me about something, and then my other friend was down towards the stage, and she came out to the lobby, and he and she met in the lobby, and they're looking at each other like, "Where's Tammy?" And they're like, "Wait a minute, did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And there was nobody there. There was literally no one there. There was nobody walking by the theater. And there was a slight smell of perfume in the lobby. Everyone says Colonel Baker haunts around. And I haven't personally had any contact with Colonel Baker, but a couple other people swear that they think that Colonel Baker is there. Recently, because we've had 2 different groups, paranormal groups in, and mediums, they picked up some really fascinating audio in our old sound booth, and it is compelling. It sounds like somebody's knocking on a door and a man saying, "Oh, I like what you did with your hair." And then somebody else saying, "Oh, I did it for the show." And back then it was where they showed the movies, where the sound booth was. And the other interesting thing is that same area is where our men's clothing is. And my husband has always felt super creepy up there. He's like, "It's very heavy in here. It's very weird." Then the medium also found that there was a lady up by the dressing rooms that was looking very period and older and absolutely not modern. So we've had a lot of different people have different experiences. Our next play coming up is called Blythe's Spirit, and it is set in the 1940s. It's a ghosty play. You can go to mygbt.org and sign up to get notices of all our plays. We are running Friday the 28th at 8 o'clock, Saturday matinee at 2 o'clock, and then Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And that wraps up our Blythe's Spirit run.
Speaking of ghosts, Tam Francis has 2 ghost story fiction books. One is a collection of short stories inspired by places around Lockhart, and the other is a time travel murder mystery ghost romance that you can find locally at Wendy R's Books and Gifts. Tam will be joining other Lockhart local authors on October 29th from 1 to 3 at Wendy R's to meet and greet and sign books. Up next is a little song that's inspired by the Salem witch trials, and the idea that the real spells happen on the accusation of people and what they say people did instead of what they really did, and how something small can turn into something huge and terrible if you let it.
Once upon a time here in Salem were a series of peculiar events. The daughters of the town all were stricken with a sickness they say the devil had sent. So dance, tituba dance. There's a rhythm in your wicked ways, and the hounds are howling in Salem. Someone's going to hang today. Around the fire, the girls would gather, and goblins. But the thing they liked most were the spells. So dance, teacher, but dance. There's a rhythm in your wicked ways, and the hounds are howling in Salem. Someone's gonna hang today. So dance, teacher, but dance. There's a rhythm in your wicked ways, and the hounds are howling in Salem. Someone's gonna hang today. They started to tremble. One fell limp on the floor by the gavel of old Cotton Mather, and the damned would live no more. So dance, teacher, but dance. There's a rhythm in your wicked ways, and the hounds are howling in Salem. Someone's gonna hang today.
I'm Kara McGregor, and I am the owner of Birdie House and its chief occupant. I've been at Birdie House and in Lockhart for more than 20 years now. Birdie House is an interesting old place. I feel like I'm taking care of a museum as much as I am living in a house. There have been many instances over the years of inexplicable things happening, and I'm the biggest cynic of anybody you might ever meet about such things, but I have to admit that I can't explain certain things. And other folks have shared experiences with me when they've been at the house. And all I can do is just weave it into the fabric of what it is to live at Birdie House. It's appropriate to tell this one story. It happened in a fall several years ago. It was kind of how it is now. The weather's cooling off and the leaves are falling. I was having some electrical problems in my house. And the electrician I was working with at the time sent somebody out, and they got behind on their schedule that day, and they had to work late to catch up. And I was still in my job at Austin on the way home, and I called the electrician. He was out the house. He was up in the third floor attic doing his thing. And I said, I'm about an hour out. And he said, well, that's just fine. I'm sure I'll finish up long before you get home, but I'll call you tomorrow and tell you where we stand. I said, great. So I'm fighting my way through traffic, coming into Lockhart. It's dark at this point. I pull into my driveway and his truck is gone. So I just thought, well, he finished up like he thought. And I go in the house and I'm just hustling around, picking things up, getting some dinner ready for the rest of the folks joining me that night. And I run upstairs, and in the landing on the second floor, Birdie House has 2 floors and back then a third floor attic. On the second floor stair landing, there was a tool belt. That was strange. Electrician left his tool belt. Okay, I'll check in with him later. But then I noticed the door up to the attic was hanging open. So I climbed those little narrow stairs to get up to that third floor attic, and there was some other tools laying around up there, and the lights were still on. The little work lights were still on. And so I started trying to call the electrician. I couldn't reach him. It's the next day and I still can't reach him. So I reach out to his boss and I said, hey, he seemed to have left in a hurry. I have his tool belt. Did he have an emergency? Is everything okay? And his boss said, well, he's not going to be back to your house. And I asked him, what do you mean? And he said, well, he saw some things up there. I said, well, tell me more. I don't understand. Well, it gives me the willies. I'm not going to talk about it myself. Maybe you can talk to him sometime, but he won't be coming back to your house. I didn't know what to say. I said, okay, well, I'll keep trying to call him. I have his tools. Long story short, it took a few weeks for me to actually get this electrician on the phone. He told me he was up there. The work lights were kind of flickering a little, but it's an old house and the lights have always flickered a little. He heard a noise behind him in the attic. And this attic, it was, rafters unfinished, but it had plywood all down the center so you could walk comfortably up there. And there was a bunch of old stuff stored up there, old Halloween decorations and Christmas and furniture that didn't have a home, stuff from previous owners still up there. And he says he heard a noise behind him, turned around, and he saw a chair slide from one end of the attic all the way to the other. He said he couldn't move for a few minutes. And then he saw the chair turn around, like rotate, is what I gathered from what he said. He saw it move again. And that was it. He took off downstairs. He felt he wasn't moving fast enough with all his tools on him. So he dropped his tool belt so he could sprint faster out of my house, piled in his truck, and screeched away. And he told me, indeed, he will not be back to my house. We arranged a place off-site for me to meet him and hand his tools back. He would not even come in the yard. And I'm laughing because I have never seen anything that was ominous, at Birdie House. But clearly he was messing with something that the house didn't like.
All Hallows by Louise Gluck. Even now, this landscape is assembling. The hills darken. The oxen sleep in their blue yoke, the fields having been picked clean, the sheaves bound evenly and piled at the roadside among the seafoil. As the toothed moon rises, this is the barrenness of harvest or pestilence, and the wife leaning out the window with her hand extended as in payment, and the seeds distinct, gold, calling, come here. Come here, little one. And the soul creeps out of the tree.
There's a lot of traditions in Lockhart, and one of the ones is the Lockhart broom ride on the square, which is kind of kooky, and Sunflower and Friends and Chaparral are presenting it. And this episode is dedicated to Sunflower and Friends, our local music school and repair shop. They are the place where you can teach your kids how to play an instrument at a reasonable price, where you can get your gear fixed. They employ musicians, and this episode is dedicated to them. We're sending all donations to them, so they're having a little bit of trouble getting through just due to inflation and the pandemic and whatnot. So part of the reason to be doing this podcast is to make people aware of all the music and art that we have going on here in Lockhart and surrounding area. If you're feeling inclined and you like what you hear, just donate today, and you can help out our local music shop on this episode. Starting at Sunflower and Friends on October 26th at 6:30, you start at Sunflower and you bring your own broom and you ride around the square and end up at Chaparral. Then we'll have a kind of a little DJ party going on there. Jason Cronus is going to be DJing. Also, there is on October 28th, we've got the Trunk or Treat at the Parkview Nursing and Rehab. That's 1501 South Main Street in Lockhart. Kids can wear costumes. That's from 3 to 5 p.m. Later that evening at the Commerce Hall, you'll have Rattlesnake Milk, Parker Chapin, and then Chaz Emile Bissett will be playing as well. Chaz is the guy that runs Sunflower and Friends, along with Naomi. And so it's a full day of art and Halloween fun. The show gets started at Commerce Hall around 7, and it's an all-ages cover at $10. So speaking of chaparral, Taylor Burge came in, and she did a really unique version of Come Little Children, this song that's featured in Hocus Pocus. We're going to play that for you now.
Come, little children, I'll take thee away into the land of enchantment. Come, little children, the time's come to play here in my garden of shadow. Hush now, my children, it must be this way. Too weary of life and deceptions. Rest now, my children, for soon we'll away into the calm and the little children, I'll take thee away into the land of enchantment. Come, little children, the time's come to play here in the garden of shadow.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Elizabeth Collins. I'm Elliot Wacon. I am going to be telling the story of the meaning tree, which my dad told me when I think I was about 5. So it is a story about 2 people who were in love. But the dad did not like that his daughter was in love with this man. So the woman decided to tell the man to meet at this tree. This was during the Civil War times. Nobody knows why he didn't show up, but whenever she went to the meeting tree, he never showed up. Nobody knows why. The boy never came. Sometimes at night, you can still hear the girl crying. It is located at closest to the firefighter park, but next to the post office.
My name is Parker Allred. My family and I moved here in, I can't remember if it was 83 or 84. I was a young tyke, but yeah, I've been here pretty much the entire time, with the exception of college and a 4-year stint on the railroad. So right over here on Main Street, in the house I grew up in, and I would say it was probably the early 90s. My dad called me on a weekend, and he was a little shaken up, which was very unusual for him. He was a very stoic, calm individual. And so I asked him what was going on, and he kind of beat around the bush a few minutes, and finally got to saying, "Hey, do you believe in ghosts?" And I said, "No, I don't. Why?" And he related to me a story of the night before. He was at a party, one of the local investment clubs. They had been at a party, and he started feeling not well. So he decided to go on back to the house and go to bed early, took a shower, went to sleep. That evening in his sleep, he told me that in his dream, he woke up to a lady standing or coming up the stairs is what it was. She was coming up the staircase. Their room was upstairs. And so in his dream, he went to chat with her to see who she was, what she was doing in his house, et cetera, et cetera. And she started becoming a little bit belligerent, with him implying that it was his house, not her house. And
The other way around.
yeah. So she started saying, "No, I'm not lost. This is my house. I built this house in the early 1900s to be next door to my daughter," which all checks out with the historical nature of these homes on Main Street. And that she was coming up to go to bed. And my dad said, "Well, that's my bed. You're welcome to use the other side, but I'm using this side." And apparently an argument ensued, to the point that she threatened to kill anyone in the home who was not a Cardwell or a Cardwell descendant. And yeah, it freaked my dad out. He woke up terrified, and he related that story to me the next day.
Dreams with the Mothman. Last night I had dreams with the Mothman. Last night I had dreams with the Mothman. Last night I had dreams with the Mothman. Last night I got a ride from Judas. 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 Last night. Last night I had dinner with Nero. Last night I had dinner with Nero. Last night I had dinner with Nero. Last night I did a dance macabre. 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 Last night.
Well, I think it's about time to check in with our old friend Barney Chowder at Eye in the Sky, keeping tabs on Lockhart. Barney, what you got for us?
Hey, Steven. You're out in the sky up here, Barney Chowder. I gotta be serious with you. All that construction going on at that Valero, we tried to land the chopper in there. We were running out low on gas. We usually fill up there at that Valero right there on 142. And they've been, I guess, redoing the pavement there, so it took a lot longer. But we're back up in the sky. Everything looks pretty good here. Looks like that new Chuck E. Cheese. You know, that's always going to get a big crowd right here around dinner time. But you know, for a Monday, doesn't seem too bad. You know, got all the healthies over at Snap Fitness doing their thing, watching that. And, you know, all the action kind of going on at the Poco Loco when you get on the outskirts of town. But other than that, Lockhart looks pretty clear and free right now. Looks like we got some clouds kind of moving in, the kind of we call the cumulus. Cumulus clouds are moving in. But other than that, looks like we're going to be good. And this is going to be a nice end of season for the dove season. Like I say, it's always a pleasure to work with you, Stephen. Barney Chowder, you're out in the sky.
Last night I had dreams with the Mothman. Last night I had dreams with the Mothman. Last night I had dreams with the Mothman. Last night I had.
All right, well, Wednesday, October 26th, as we talked about, Sunflower and Friends in Chaparral present Lockhart Broom Ride on the Square. You meet at Sunflower and Friends at 6:30 p.m. for treats, noisemakers and assembly, and fly to Chaparral at 7:30 for DJ, dancing, and other witchery things and all kinds of, So bring your own broom. All right, so at the Pearl that night on Wednesday, October 26th, is local singer-songwriter Chris Lancaster from 7 to 9 p.m. Thursday, October 27th, Old Pal is having Erica Michelle from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. The El Rey nightclub is having line dancing with women only from 6 to 7 p.m. Load Off Fannies is having karaoke night from 6 to 10. The Martindale River Cafe is having movie night, and they're showing Hocus Pocus at 8 p.m. Friday, October 28th, Old Pal is having Charlie Murphy.
Charlie, he was hanging out with the big dogs, Charlie didn't know he was doing crazy things, and I had to straighten him out. Sometimes I had to go upside his head.
From 9:30 to 11:30 p.m. The Pearl is having a Halloween party with Tom Foolery and the Saloonics. That's actually Tom Pyle and his local band. 9 to 11 p.m. Arts and Craft, it's open mic night with Halloween style, so please come tell your ghost stories that you haven't heard here. Or if you have told them here, you can go over there and tell them. The time is going to be announced on that. Commerce Hall is having Chaz Emile Bissett, and Rattlesnake Milk opens with Parker Chapin. Doors open at 7. It's an all-ages show. We got to remind you that this episode is dedicated to the Sunflower and Friends Music Shop, as they have both a school and a repair shop and a shop that you can buy guitars and other instruments in, amps, all kinds of things. Chaz does great work in the shop. He's retubed a bunch of my gear, and he has great taste. He was in Austin before he came down to Lockhart, and it's a real honor to have him here because he does fantastic work. He does world-class work here in town. Naomi runs the music school, very dedicated music school for any age to take an instrument and learn it very well. And it also includes a recital in front of a live audience where you can learn to play on a stage before a live audience, which is important in playing an instrument. And so our episode is dedicated to them and every donation that you make, and we do encourage you to donate because it will go to them directly as soon as you donate. Saturday, October 29th, Old Pal is having Ruby Dice from 9:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Sunday, October 30th, Old Pal is having a brunch with Bear Ryan from 12 to 2 p.m. Martindale is having a Monster Mash in downtown Martindale at the Martindale River Cafe at 417 Main Street. That's 11 to 2 p.m. Free music, hay rides, trunk or treat, games, vendors, costume. Fantastic for the kids. The Pearl is hosting Sunday night, October 30th with W.C. Clark from 3 to 5, Sunday matinee. And Monday, October 31st, well, nobody's doing anything but trick-or-treating, so you heard it right here, 78644 News. Dustin Welsh has come into the studio to talk with us on this episode, and he and I have known each other, I guess, maybe, I want to say 10 years or more, and recently, about 4 years ago, I think, moved to Lockhart, and I had a dream one night that we were working together, and I hadn't seen him in like 5 years, and I called him, and I said, hey man, I had this weird dream that we're supposed to work together. And you were like, really? And so he came down and we did a song together that I think ended up we did a couple of songs together on your new record, Dustin, isn't that right?
Yeah, and so we were living in Martindale still at the time, but yeah, you invited me over to come to Lockhart, and I hadn't really spent much time here before that, and so of course just immediately fell in love with the town, and as well as getting to work in the studio here with you. We recorded like one entire song here, and then did a bunch of overdubs as well for the last album of mine, Amateur Theater.
It's been great having you around because we've gotten to know each other as friends and working on each other's music, but we're also getting a chance to work on a new project together, which is a foray into television and film with a concept that I have called Deep Texas, where we get musicians to play characters in a glorified fictional town that's based on all these little towns around us.
My first response was, you realize I'm not an actor, right? You know, but sure, yeah, I'd give it a shot. And the character that you wrote, in fact, I mean, it's not that far from the truth of actually who I am anyway. So
you're a lot smarter than him, though. Way smarter. But I'm having fun with it. It's kind of fun to bend all the rules and see how far we can push ourselves in the creative world to see what we come up with. And so I'm looking forward to showcasing that too when it comes out. So we've been able to do some work on that show together musically too. We've done a couple of songs. I think we're going to show one of the songs we've been working with for Deep that's kind of in this creepy vibe that we've got going on this episode.
Yeah, getting to kind of start thinking about writing. Like, I've always tried to make my music and the records be fairly cinematic anyway. Thinking about something that's specifically for how to make something sound like the way that the film looks.
Down the hall I hear the footsteps of everyone who came and went, and my eyes are wide and wondering what all that thundering meant. I find myself thinking that lightning will finally strike the ground, and the bats above the courthouse clock tower are circling round. I gotta go deeper, take the long way down. I gotta go deeper if I'm gonna stand my ground. I gotta go deeper, take the long way down. I gotta go deeper if I'm gonna stand my ground.
You get in a world, you create this world, and then you live in it, and puts you in parameters, puts you in a completely different space. And that song, working on, I think it's called Deeper, it's really interesting to see it take place, because I don't think we've done anything like that before, where we just lay something down and in that world and be like, okay, hey, this is in that world, take it and figure something out.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
So,
and I was able to kind of use a lot of the sort of imagery from around Lockhart as well, and some of the characters that you're introducing in this. I was able to kind of get inside of those characters' mind a little bit.
we're going to do a song. Do you want to do the song, or do you want to you want to tell the story first? Because both of them have stories, right?
This was kind of the Halloween episode, so we were talking about spooky stuff, and I was going, well, I mean, I was actually born in this old plantation house out in Franklin, Tennessee, that was very haunted. I think that they finally determined, whoever was haunting this house, they must have been blind. You'd be sitting there, and then all of a sudden a chair would just fall over, or you'd feel something just like come over and knock against the couch or the bed. So they finally figured, well, this ghost must have been blind, because he can't see where he's going at all. In my teenage years, I was studying a lot of that old kind of, folk Appalachian blues and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of murder ballads and all those, the Carl Sandburg American Songbag and the Harry Smith Folk Anthology and all of those. And so I had decided I wanted to write basically just a murder ballad and see how that would work.
Well, senorita, my mind is gone.
and so is all of my money. But one small kiss is all that I wish, but you are sweeter than honey. I have squandered my whole life away. Now I'm asking you for benediction, but I'm going down to the river to drown, and now is the time for redemption. 'Cause there are glorious bounties in heaven above, and glorious bounties on earth. But when your course fails out among the rails, you never know what they were worth. There was a young woman, and I loved her well. She was all my eyes could see, but for all I could do, her heart was never true, and still I could not leave her be. Well, I found her in bed with another man. I killed him in his sleep. Well, I was quick with him, but she died only when she awoke and she began to weep. There are glorious bounties in heaven above, glorious bounties on earth. But when your course fails out amongst the rails, you never know what they were worth. Oh, senorita, my mind is gone, along with all that I treasure. But one small kiss is all that I wish, that I may never again have the pleasure. And see, I have squandered my whole life away. Now I'm asking you for benediction, but I'm going down to the river to drown, and now is the time for redemption. And there are glorious bounties in heaven above, glorious bounties on earth. But when your course fails out among the rails, you never know what they were worth. There are glorious bounties in heaven above, glorious bounties on earth. But when your course fails out among the rails, you never know what they were worth.
Man, I never wrote anything that good when I was 16, man. That's a good tune. It's like it has that Western lift to that sort of Marty Robbins quality on the chorus.
Kind of spaghetti Western sort of treatment on it a little bit. Well, I grew up around a lot of Texas songwriters, so
yeah, it's in the blood.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing some gigs around here. You want to tell us where you're playing next?
Yeah, I get to play around Lockhart a lot these days, which is great because I can walk to a lot of the gigs. Even it's one of the easiest kind of load-ins I have these days. We are doing something for the barbecue festival things coming up on the 5th, November 5th, and so they're going to have us, I think me and my cello player, Mark Williams, are going to play over at Load Off Fanny's on the 5th. And then the next weekend, we'll be playing at Old Pal. I'll do like a set with the band there, like the second Saturday of every month. So yeah, 2 weekends in a row coming up right here.
In Lockhart, Texas. That's awesome. So thanks for taking time to come by and do this.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to our first episode. It's been a lot of fun. We look forward to seeing you next time. 78644 is produced by Kate Collins, recorded at Troubadour Image and Sound, the Troubadour Studio here in Lockhart, Texas. Original music by Dustin Welsh, myself, Stephen Collins, with help from Fred Mandujano, Jacob Hildebrand, and Zach Schaefer. Performances by Taylor Burge and Dustin Welsh. Thanks to them for that. If you have music or art that you'd like to talk about here on 78644, please email us at 78644podcast@gmail.com. Our podcast will be available on Google Podcasts and Radio Public and at your favorite podcast platform soon. Thanks a lot.